It was meant to be a calm Tuesday night town hall in Phoenix. Barack Obama sat under the bright lights, jacket open and tie loosened just enough to show ease without losing formality. He was speaking about the strength of democracy when the moderator suddenly froze. His earpiece crackled with urgent news. "Mr. President," he stammered, eyes locked on the camera. "We've just been informed that President Trump is calling in." Gasps spread through the audience. This wasn't planned. A sitting president crashing his predecessor's event live on national TV? The control room panicked, producers waving frantically behind the glass. The moderator looked like the place was on fire. Obama, though, didn't flinch. He leaned back, resting one hand on the armrest, the other at his chin. Calm and almost amused. "Put him through," he said in that measured voice people hadn't heard since 2016. The screen lit up with Trump's face, his voice booming. "Barack, I had to call in. This whole thing is a disgrace. Under your watch, jobs vanished. Under me, we had the best economy the world's ever seen." Everyone knows it. The crowd shifted uneasily. This wasn't just unexpected, it was a clash of eras, live and raw. Obama stayed silent, letting the tension build. Then he turned to the audience with a half smile. "Well," he said softly, "looks like we've got company tonight." The crowd laughed, tension easing for a moment, but everyone knew where this was going, an unscripted showdown. Trump, sensing momentum, pressed harder. "People remember how bad it was before me. Manufacturing was dying. China was eating us alive. I fixed it. The numbers prove it. Without me, this country would be in ruins. And now you sit there acting like you did something good. You didn't, Barack. People know it." His words weren't polished, but they were loud, forceful, meant to dominate, and they carried weight. Trump was still president, his name everywhere, his face on every screen. But in that room, the audience wasn't watching him, they were watching Obama. Everyone wanted to see how he'd respond. Would he snap back, ignore it? Obama leaned forward, hands clasped, and spoke calmly into the camera. "Mr. President," he said, pausing just long enough, "I think Americans care less about who shouts the loudest and more about who actually tells them the truth." Applause erupted. The moderator shifted, torn between relief and worrying. The clash was no longer a what if, it was real, and the contrast was striking. Trump's voice thundered, but Obama's quiet steadiness carried more weight. One man stormed, the other stood firm, and suddenly, the moment belonged to Obama. But this was just the beginning. Before the night was over, he would deliver one line that turned a political confrontation into one of the most replayed moments in modern television. The evening had originally been planned as something entirely different: steady, thoughtful, reflective. The Phoenix Convention Center had been staged simply: 2 armchairs, a small table with water, and an audience arranged in a half circle. The idea was not debate but conversation, giving Obama space to talk about unity, democracy, and what holds a nation together when it feels divided. The cameras swept across faces: teachers, veterans, students, retirees. Some wore faded Obama shirts. Others just wanted to hear what he had to say in a time when politics felt sharper and more combative than ever. Reed Lawson, a seasoned journalist from Dallas, opened with a gentle question: "Mr. President, when you look at where we are now, what worries you most about the health of our democracy?" Obama leaned back, thinking. "I worry," he said slowly, "that we've started to confuse. Too many politicians think trending online is leadership," Obama said. "But real leadership isn't about likes or retweets, it's about actually improving the lives of the people who trusted you with their vote." The audience responded with a quiet, thoughtful applause, the kind that comes when a truth sinks in. For nearly 40 minutes, the conversation carried that steady rhythm. Obama spoke about voting rights, the danger of misinformation, and the importance of listening beyond your own circle. He never mentioned Trump by name, but the shadow of that rivalry was felt in every line. A young teacher from Mesa asked, "How do you keep believing in the system when so many are losing faith?" Obama smiled softly. "That's a fair question. The system has never been perfect. It wasn't when I ran, it wasn't in Lincoln's time, and it won't be for your students. But it only works if people like you stay in it: teachers, nurses, veterans, small business owners. Democracy survives when everyday people keep pushing and holding leaders accountable. Without that, all you've got is a stage show, heads nodded, some people even wiping their eyes. The mood wasn't fiery, but steady, like a slow-burning flame. Behind the cameras, producers tracked the broadcast ratings rising, clips of Obama spreading quickly online, his name trending again. For some, it felt like nostalgia. For others, a sharp contrast to the noise of today's politics. Then a message flashed in the control room: the White House is watching. That wasn't unusual, but the next note was: the president may respond. The director exchanged a nervous glance with the floor manager. Respond how? A tweet? A statement? No one knew. Back on stage, a veteran from Flagstaff asked, "Mr. President, what's the one piece of advice you'd give the man in office right now?" The room fell silent. Obama tilted his head, choosing his words carefully. "I'd say this: when you're president, you don't just talk to the people who like you. You talk to everyone, even those who didn't vote for you. Because whether you like it or not, they're still your boss. That's the job." The answer wasn't flashy, but it carried weight. The applause that followed felt earned. Some in the audience leaned forward, sensing something was about to happen. In the control room, alarms might as well have been ringing. Trump wasn't going to let Obama's words go unanswered, not tonight. Not on live TV with millions watching. Still, no one expected him to go beyond a statement or a tweet. No one expected him to break into the broadcast himself. The moment it happened, the entire room froze. Moderator Reed Lawson had just finished a question on misinformation when a producer waved a white card at him from the edge of the stage. Reed adjusted his glasses, read the note, and pressed his lips together before clearing his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said carefully, "we've just been informed we have something unusual. President Trump has called into the broadcast." Gasps rippled through the crowd, whispers rose, and one older man muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." Obama stayed relaxed, crossing one leg over the other, his elbow on the chair's arm. He looked amused, almost as if he'd been expecting it. "Go ahead," he said smoothly, "let's hear him." At first, only Trump's voice came through, rough and unpolished, like a speakerphone. "Barack, I had to do this. I couldn't just sit here and let you run your mouth. You left this country weak, broke. Under me, we have the strongest economy ever. People say it, economists say it, you know it." The audience stirred. Some booed, others laughed nervously, while the studio crew scrambled behind the cameras. Within seconds, Trump's face filled the giant screen above the stage, not staged or polished, just lit from the Oval Office. His tie hung loose, his expression sharp. "You were a failure, Barack," he declared, his voice echoing through the hall. "And now you're trying to rewrite history, but history doesn't lie. People remember the jobs lost, the factories closed, the terrible deals. With China, it was a disaster. I fixed it. Nobody gives me credit, but I fixed it." Obama didn't answer right away. He simply folded his hands in his lap, studying the screen the way you might study a rival in a chess match making his first move. The audience held its breath. "Mr. President," Reed tried again, hoping to steady the moment. "We appreciate you joining us, though this wasn't planned." Trump cut him off. "Of course it wasn't planned, because nobody wants me here. They never want me here," Trump pressed on, "but the people at home do. They want me to speak the truth. And the truth is, Obama, you're overrated. You always were. Fake news keeps treating you like a hero, but you weren't." The crowd erupted, some yelling for him to stop, others shouting, "Let him finish." The mix of voices only added to the chaos. Obama leaned forward at last, resting his elbows on his knees. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Well," he said softly, "I guess we're breaking new ground tonight." Laughter rippled through the room, but the relief was brief. Trump raised his voice again. "I did more in 4 years than you did in 8. I brought jobs back. I rebuilt the military. I stood up to China, NATO freeloaders, everyone taking advantage of us. You didn't do any of that. And now you sit here pretending to be some wise man talking about democracy. You don't know democracy. You don't know strength. The audience split, some booing, some clapping, others groaning like spectators at a prize fight. Obama exhaled. Slowly, I steady on the camera, Mr. President. He said, people at home can see what's happening here. You're shouting, you're repeating yourself. And what they want tonight isn't more noise, it's clarity. The air shifted. A man in the third row leaned forward, whispering, he's got him. For a flicker of a moment, Trump's expression tightened as if the words had cut deeper than expected. But he snapped back quickly. Clarity, he barked. The only clarity is this: without me, America loses. With me, America wins. That's it. That's the truth. The words hung heavy. In the silence, demented presidents facing off with no script, no rules. The moderator tried to step in, but the show no longer belonged to him. Inside the Phoenix Convention Center, the air was thick. Viewers at home leaned toward their screens. Audience members gripped their chairs. Reed Lawson's voice trembled as he tried to steer things back under control. But Trump wasn't slowing down. Barack, he said, jabbing a finger at the camera as if pointing straight at him. You were a disaster for this country. Look at the numbers, the trade deals, the border. I fixed every mess you left. The stock market hit records under me. Unemployment the lowest in 50 years. People were winning again. That's what I gave America. You gave them speeches. I gave them results. The audience roared, some booing, others clapping, but no one looked away. All eyes stayed locked on the stage, waiting for Obama's response. He leaned back, fingers steepled, his expression calm like someone who'd heard the same tune many times before. Well, he began evenly. When I took office, the country was losing 750,000 jobs a month. The auto industry was collapsing. Banks were failing. Families feared losing everything. So yes, we worked hard. By the time I left, unemployment was cut in half. The stock market had doubled, and millions of Americans had health insurance who didn't before. Applause rippled across the room. Trump fired back instantly. Fake numbers, totally fake. Everybody knows it. You brag about saving the auto industry, but I brought back manufacturing. I brought the jobs. I made America respected again. Obama raised an eyebrow, as if Trump had just proved his point. Respect, he said, calm but firm, isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about whether people trust you, whether our allies trust us, whether ordinary Americans believe their leader is being straight with them. The applause grew louder this time, someone shouting, "That's right." From the back on the screen, Trump smirked and shook his head. You always talk pretty, Barack, pretty speeches, no action. Me, I'm action. People wanted someone strong, someone who fights. That's why I won and you lost. That's why you're sitting there and I'm sitting here. The words hit like a punch. He used the very fact of his presidency as the ultimate card. The crowd tensed, waiting for Obama's counter. Obama leaned in, closing the distance to the camera. You're right, he said plainly. You won an election. That happens in a democracy. But winning doesn't mean you stop listening to people who didn't vote for you. It doesn't mean spending every day attacking critics instead of doing the job. The presidency isn't a trophy. It's not about you, it's about them. The people who sent you there. The audience erupted, clapping so loudly the moderator had to raise his hands for order. The contrast was striking. Trump loud, combative, filling the air with volume. Obama quiet but sharp, cutting with precision. Trump snapped back. You don't get it, Barack. People love me because I fight. I fight the fake media, the Democrats, China, NATO, everyone. You bowed down to them. You gave away the country. People know it. That's why I'll win again. That's why people still want me in the White House. The mention of another election drew a wave of noise, boos, jeers, and a few cheers from his supporters in the room. The atmosphere was more prize fight than town hall now. Obama only smiled faintly, shaking his head like he'd just heard a tall tale. You know, he said, fighting everybody isn't the same as leading. Anybody can pick a fight. The real question is, can you build something? Can you leave people better off than you found them? The audience caught it. Obama wasn't. Shouting, but he was pressing closer, circling in. Trump's face flushed red on the giant screen. I built the strongest country in the world, Trump snapped. You left it weak borders, weak military, weak economy. I made it strong. Again, everybody knows it. That's why they cheer me at every rally, thousands of people, Trump boomed. The biggest crowds anyone's ever seen. Obama chuckled softly, and the audience followed with laughter. He hadn't said a word, but the room already felt tilted in his direction. Moderator Reed Lawson glanced nervously between the two men, his papers shaking in his hands. This wasn't a Q&A anymore, it was a live showdown, and everyone could feel it. The split screen was surreal. Trump at the White House, Obama in Phoenix. Two heavyweights circling each other, not in a boxing ring, but in the arena of democracy. Live on primetime TV. Trump leaned toward the camera, voice sharp. Barack, you're jealous, that's what this is. You're jealous because I'm in the Oval Office, not you. I built the strongest economy in history, lowest unemployment. Everybody was winning, farmers, workers, police officers, everybody. Under you, nothing but weakness, disaster. His words came rapid fire, like bullets. The audience split, some booing, some clapping, others frozen in disbelief. Obama sat quietly, shoulders relaxed, letting Trump burn through his fuel. When Trump finally paused, Obama adjusted his mic and straightened up. His voice was calm, yet sharper than any shout. Mr. President, he said, the American people don't need numbers rattled off like a sales pitch. They don't need slogans or another round of who's winning and losing. What they need is leadership. And leadership isn't about making yourself the hero of every story, it's about making sure the story is about them. Applause exploded, some in the crowd rising to their feet. On screen, Trump shook his head, forcing a half smile. Oh, give me a break. You talk like a professor. People don't want lectures, they want results. And I gave them results. Look at the stock market, look at the job numbers. Look at border security. You were weak. I had to fix your mess. Obama leaned forward, both hands on his knees, gaze steady. His voice stayed soft, deliberate. You know, Mr. President, the job isn't about who can build the biggest crowd or claim the biggest numbers. Numbers rise and fall. Crowds cheer one day, boo the next. What people never forget is whether you respected them, whether you told them the truth, even when it was inconvenient, whether you treated them like citizens, not props. The crowd erupted again, louder than before. Someone shouted, "Tell him." Trump's face twisted with frustration. Truth. You want to talk truth, you lied about everything. Obamacare disaster, Iran deal disaster. You left the country divided, weaker than ever. I came in and brought it back, people know it. They cheer me everywhere I go. You can't even fill a gymnasium. Obama chuckled lightly. He didn't deny it, he didn't get defensive. Instead, Obama tilted his head, studying Trump on the screen like a puzzle piece. You know, I've been out of office for years, and I still get invited to talk with young people, teachers, veterans, community leaders. I may not fill stadiums anymore, but I get something better. I get to look people in the eye and know their lives were a little more stable when I left than when I arrived. That matters more to me than any rally. The crowd erupted louder than at any point that night. Trump's eyes narrowed. Stable? You call losing factories stable? You call giving China billions stable? Nobody believes you anymore, Barack. They believe me because I tell it like it is. The words hung in the air. The moderator shifted, ready to cut in, but Obama raised a finger, calm and steady. Mr. President, he said, telling it like it is doesn't mean you're telling the truth. Sometimes it just means you say things loud enough that people stop asking questions. Leadership isn't about noise, it's about honesty. The audience leapt to their feet, clapping and cheering. Some whispering, "He's got him." Cameras Caught stunned faces across the room. On screen, Trump fidgeted, adjusting his tie and shuffling his papers. Not panic but discomfort, plain as day. The clash had moved past numbers and policy. It was now about truth, character, and how each man carried himself before millions, and Obama was holding something back. The studio felt electric, every breath sharp, every ear waiting. Trump leaned forward, jabbing his finger at the lens. "You're a talker, Barack. That's all you've ever been. You talk pretty, but you don't get results. I'm a doer. People wanted a fighter, and that's why I'm sitting here and you're sitting there." Boos, hisses, and a few cheers scattered through the crowd. The moderator sat frozen, unable to break in. Obama inhaled slowly, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His voice dropped to a near conversational tone, pulling the entire room closer. "Mr. President, there's something you still don't understand about this job. It's not about making everything about you. It's about making people feel seen and heard, even the ones who didn't vote for you. Because when you only fight for yourself, you're not leading. You're performing." The applause thundered again, but Obama raised his hand, quieting the room, eyes locked on the camera. "You brag about building the strongest economy, but leadership isn't measured by how many times you say winning. It's measured by whether families feel secure, whether kids have opportunities, whether people can look at their president and believe they're respected." Trump rolled his eyes, smirking, blah, blah, blah. "Nobody's buying it anymore, Barack. Nobody." Obama tilted his head, as though he had been waiting for that exact moment. He let the silence stretch until the air grew heavy, then delivered the line that would echo for days across every network, every feed, every dinner table. "Mr. President," Obama said evenly, "when you have to keep telling people you're winning, it usually means you're losing where it matters most." The words landed like a thunderclap. The audience gasped, then erupted into a standing ovation, clapping, cheering, even stomping their feet. Moderator Reed Lawson's mouth fell open before he caught himself. On the screen, Trump blinked rapidly, clearly rattled. That's nonsense," he stammered. "People know I'm winning. They know it. Look at the rallies, look at the crowds." But his voice was drowned out by the roar in Phoenix. Cameras caught a young woman wiping away tears, an elderly man clapping so hard his glasses nearly fell, and college students leaping to their feet. Obama didn't gloat. He didn't even smile. He leaned back in his chair, calm and collected, letting the moment speak for itself. When the applause finally faded, he added softly, almost as an afterthought, "America doesn't need a performer-in-chief. It needs a commander-in-chief." The hall exploded again. Reed struggled to keep order as Trump's face flushed red. "This is fake, totally fake. Rigged television," he barked, but the words had lost their weight. The audience had already decided who won. In the control room, producers exchanged stunned looks. They knew they were watching history. Twitter was already ablaze, clips of Obama's line spreading like wildfire, people typing it out again and again. "When you have to keep telling people you're winning, you're losing where it matters most." Obama turned calmly back to the moderator. "Reed," he said, as if nothing had happened, "let's get back to the questions. I think folks came here to talk about the future of democracy." It was the ultimate flex and knockout blow, followed by moving on as if the fight hadn't even touched him. The crowd roared, while Trump kept shouting over the noise, "You're weak, Barack. Nobody respects you anymore." Obama didn't respond. He simply took a sip of water, set the glass down, and waited. The silence that followed cut deeper than any comeback. His line hadn't just silenced Trump, it had captured the country. Inside the Phoenix Convention Center, the energy shook the building. It felt less like a town hall and more like a concert, with Obama as the performer who had just delivered the line no one expected but everyone would remember. On the giant screen, Trump fought to claw back control, his face flushed, his finger jabbing at the camera. "Don't be fooled, folks. This is fake news at its finest, strict TV. Totally rigged. You're clapping because that's what the media tells you to do." But the crowd wasn't listening anymore. They tell you to cheer for him and boo me. Trump snapped. But out in the real America, people know I delivered biggest crowds, biggest numbers, the strongest country we've ever had. The audience booed loudly, drowning him out. Some laughed, others shouted back. One man stood and yelled, "He just buried you," sending half the room into cheers and whistles. Moderator Reed Lawson looked like he wanted to vanish behind his notes, clearing his throat nervously. "Mr. President Trump, we appreciate your time, but perhaps we can return too." Trump cut him off. "No, Reed, don't try to silence me. That's what you people always do. You silence me, you silence my supporters, but not tonight. I'm the president. I don't get silenced." Obama leaned back, calm and even sympathetic, like a teacher watching a student unravel. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence itself became the counterpunch. The cameras swept across the audience, people whispering, shaking their heads, grinning in disbelief. Everyone could feel it. This was history. To presidents clashing, live and unfiltered. Finally, Reed turned to Obama, desperate to regain control. "Mr. President, former President Obama, shall we continue with the next audience question?" Obama smiled faintly. "Of course. Let's hear from the folks who came here tonight." The crowd applauded, eager to move forward, but Trump wouldn't let go. "You're not gonna get away with that line, Barack. You're not. It was a cheap shot, totally cheap. People see through it. They know I'm winning. Everybody knows it. Look at the rallies, the polls massive, incredible. Nobody's ever seen numbers like mine," but the desperation in his repetition was obvious. The audience groaned, some shaking their heads. Obama leaned forward, still steady. "Mr. President, with all due respect, I think the American people have already heard your case. Maybe we should let them hear from each other now." The line drew another round of applause. Trump tried to shout over it, but the noise drowned him out. Reed seized the moment and called on a middle-aged veteran in the crowd. The man stood, his voice firm. "With all due respect to both of you, I've served under leaders from both parties. What we need now isn't another shouting match. We need a leader who can actually bring us together, not tear us apart." The audience cheered, the veteran's words cutting through like a spark. Obama nodded in gratitude. On screen, Trump shook his head and muttered into the mic, "Fake veteran. They plant these people. Total plant." The boos that followed shook the hall. Even Reed couldn't hide his discomfort anymore. "Mr. President, I think we've taken enough of your time this evening. We appreciate your input, but this event was meant to focus on President Obama's perspective. Perhaps we can continue with that." Trump scowled, his face darkening. "Fine, but you'll see, the people are with me, not him. Me." The feed cut. The giant screen went black. The room let out a collective exhale, like a pressure valve. Finally released, a woman in the front row shouted, "Thank you." And the hall broke into laughter and cheers. Obama sat quietly, letting the noise wash over the room before leaning into the microphone. "Well," he said dryly, "that was unexpected." The hall erupted again in laughter. Reed tugged at his tie with relief. "Mr. President, I think we should move on." Obama nodded with a faint smile. "Let's do that because the future of our democracy is too important to get lost in the noise." The applause was strong, but everyone knew the night had already been transformed. Obama had landed the line. Trump had sputtered, and the clip was already racing across phones and feeds faster than anyone inside could imagine. By the time Obama finished the town hall and shook the last hand, the world outside had already changed. His one-liner was clipped, captioned, and circulating online before he even left the stage. In Los Angeles, Boris just crowded behind a coffee counter, watching it on a phone in disbelief. In Cleveland, college students packed into a dorm lounge, replaying the moment and shouting like it was a game-winning shot. In Phoenix, people leaving the convention center were already live streaming. "Did you hear that? Did you hear that line?" News outlets moved quickly. CNN ran a banner. "Obama silences Trump with live TV comeback." MSNBC replayed the clip nonstop, commentators grinning. One analyst declared, That might be the sharpest line I've ever heard on live television. Even Fox News couldn't ignore it. Their anchors debated whether Obama had gone too far or whether Trump had walked right into it, but the internet had already decided. On Twitter, the quote trended worldwide. Memes exploded Obama sitting calmly with captions like, "When you keep saying you're winning." TikTok lit up with edits, pairing the clip with sports, highlights, and comedy skits. Celebrities, athletes, even musicians joined in. By midnight, Obama shuts Trump down was the #1 trend in the country. Inside the White House, staff scrambled. Reporters later said Trump was furious, pacing the Oval Office, demanding a response. Trump summoned aides to the Oval Office, demanding talking points. But by the time any official response was ready, the story had already outrun him. On MSNBC, clips of Obama calmly sipping water after his line were replayed with dramatic pauses, commentators calling it a mic drop moment. On CNN, Anderson Cooper showed the crowd's reaction: gasps, cheers, applause, and said, "That wasn't just an audience reacting. That was a collective release." Even late-night shows were rewriting their monologues within the hour. One comedian quipped, "Trump called in to heckle Obama," and Obama basically said, "Sir, you're yelling because you've got nothing left." The studio audience howled. In Phoenix, reporters swarmed people leaving the convention center. A college student, phone in hand, told them, "I've never seen anything like it." He didn't even raise his voice, he just said it. And Trump had nothing. That clip went viral. By morning, newspapers across the country splashed Obama's words across their front pages. The Washington Post led with, "Obama's words sliced through Trump's bluster." The Arizona Republic declared, "Town hall turns historic after Obama's one-line response." International outlets from the BBC to Al Jazeera picked up the story, all pointing out how surreal it was for a sitting president to crash his predecessor's live town hall. Trump's allies rushed to spin it. Senator Ron Elkins went on Fox and Friends insisting the former president was disrespectful. He insulted the sitting commander-in-chief. That's not statesmanship, but the clip was too powerful to walk back. The internet wasn't debating civility, it was reveling in the spectacle. Analysts called it a generational moment. For older viewers, it recalled the sharpest debates of the past, Kennedy versus Nixon. For younger ones, it was the perfect meme: short, sharp, replayable in seconds across living rooms and diners. People argued in Des Moines. A retired couple nodded, saying, "Finally, someone told him straight." Outside Dallas, truckers debated whether Obama had been clever or disrespectful. In a Tucson high school, students played the clip on loop, some laughing, others stunned at how rattled Trump looked. The moral weight of the exchange began to crystallize. Tone mattered. Presence mattered against Trump's firestorm of words. Obama's calm line had drawn the sharpest contrast. One viral tweet summed it up. Obama didn't out-yell Trump. He out-truthed him. The frenzy only grew. And PR called it a turning point in how Americans would remember the Trump-Obama dynamic. On ABC, one panelist said that single sentence reminded people that restraint can be more powerful than rage. That's why it worked. Obama himself said nothing afterward. Aides confirmed he went back to his hotel, ordered room service, and didn't watch a minute of coverage. That silence only made the moment bigger. While Trump's team scrambled, Obama's quiet confidence told its own story. By the second day, the clip had been viewed tens of millions of times. It wasn't just on news programs anymore, it was in college lectures, morning radio shows, even church sermons. The words had leapt out of politics and into culture, but the real impact wasn't in the headlines. It was in everyday conversations around dinner tables, in classrooms, barbershops, diners, and offices where people rarely agreed on anything political. In Detroit, at Wilson's barbershop, 3 men sat in chairs while clippers buzzed on the TV in the corner. Obama's line replayed for the 5th time. Raymond, a retired mechanic, slapped his knee and laughed. Man, he shut him down without even raising his voice. That's how you do it, that's class. The barber nodded as he spun the chair. You could see Trump's face. He wasn't ready. He's used to people yelling back. and Obama just cut him down with calm. In Dayton, Ohio, a waitress balanced 3 plates while truck drivers argued at the counter. One, wearing a faded baseball cap, shook his head. "I don't care what you say, Trump's right. The numbers don't lie." He fixed things. Another jabbed his fork in the air. "Fix things. He got roasted last night." Couldn't even handle one sentence. "My wife doesn't even follow politics." And she was clapping at the TV. The waitress smiled quietly. For her, the power of the line wasn't about politics, it was the tone. Obama reminded her of her grandfather, steady, firm, winning the argument without ever shouting on a campus. In Madison, Wisconsin, students replayed the clip between classes. In the student union, a group huddled around a laptop, laughing and cheering. "This is the first time I've seen someone actually get under Trump's skin," a freshman said. "He couldn't spin it, he froze." Her roommate shook her head. "It wasn't even the words, it was the calm. You could tell he was in control the whole time." That's what got to him. Back in Phoenix, locals who'd been in the room kept retelling the story. Maria Hernandez, a school counselor, told her neighbors, "You could feel it like goosebumps. He said it so soft, but it hit so hard. Nobody will forget that moment." Networks collected these stories. NBC interviewed a factory worker in Pittsburgh who admitted, "I don't usually care for Obama, but last night I respected that. He handled it like a man." CNN aired a discussion with veterans in Kansas City who said leadership was about composure, not shouting. Even conservative radio callers conceded Trump looked rattled. Meanwhile, social media didn't let up. Twitter feeds filled with memes, split-screen images of Trump yelling into a microphone on one side, Obama sipping water on the other. The caption read, "Volume versus substance." On Instagram, even influencers who rarely touched politics were posting stories. This is why tone matters. Not everyone was laughing, though. Trump supporters dug in, flooding Facebook with claims that the event was staged, that the network cut his mic to make him look weak. Grainy screenshots and conspiracy threads spread quickly. The counter-narrative was loud, but even in small town, diners, checkout lines, union halls, and Sunday services, the conversations sounded the same. People were talking about that line. It was one of those rare political moments that needed no context. Anyone who heard it understood why it's done. Parents used it to explain to their kids what composure looks like. Teachers shared it in classrooms as proof that calm can beat noise. Coaches quoted it at practice. "You don't have to shout about winning, just play the game right." In many ways, the moment stopped being about Obama or Trump. It became about leadership itself, what it should be, and what it shouldn't. That night, in living rooms across the country, families kept the conversation going. In San Antonio, a mother pointed to the screen and told her teenage son, "See, the loudest person isn't always right. Sometimes it's the one who stays calm." He nodded, eyes fixed on the replay, the lesson sinking in without another word. It was clear this wasn't just a TV moment, it was a cultural marker, one that would echo in politics long after the applause had faded. The image of Obama sitting steady, almost motionless, delivering a quiet truth that left Trump rattled, had seared itself into people's minds. It wasn't a rally, it wasn't cable news noise. It was raw, unfiltered leadership unfolding live. In the days that followed, analysts debated what it meant politically. Some called it a blow to Trump's image, proof that his combative style could be punctured. Others dismissed it as just another viral moment destined to fade when the next controversy arrived. But outside the bubble of pundits and strategists, ordinary Americans were taking something more personal from it. In a Phoenix classroom, a teacher asked her students what they had learned. A boy raised his hand and said, "Sometimes you don't have to yell back, you just have to tell the truth and let it stand." The teacher smiled, knowing the lesson had landed deeper than politics. In Des Moines, a pastor referenced the clip during his Sunday sermon. "When you're secure in what's right, you don't need to shout about it. Truth has its own volume." Heads nodded around the room, people murmuring their agreement. And in households across the country, parents told their kids the same thing. leadership isn't about ego or showmanship. It's about humility, clarity, and respect, kids replayed. The clip on their phones, processing the difference between noise and wisdom. The irony, of course, was that Obama hadn't prepared for any of it. He hadn't come to the town hall expecting a confrontation. The line wasn't rehearsed, it came from instinct, from trying to steady the conversation, and that authenticity gave it weight. People can sense when something is staged. This rang true for Trump. The moment was harder to shake. His allies filled the airwaves, insisting the event was staged or that Obama had been disrespectful, but the clip was too powerful. The reaction too visceral. People weren't arguing about numbers anymore, they were talking about tone, character, and who looked like a leader when it mattered most. The lesson stretched far beyond politics. Coaches told athletes that bragging about winning isn't the same as earning respect. Managers shared it as an example of staying calm under pressure. Parents used it to show kids that bullies thrive on noise, but falter when someone refuses to play their game. And for millions, it stirred nostalgia for leadership rooted in composure and principle instead of chaos and spectacle. At the heart of it was a simple truth. Words matter, and how you say them matters. In a country drowning in shouting, one calm sentence cut louder than hours of bluster. That's why it stuck, that's why it spread. It wasn't just that Obama won the exchange, it was that he reminded people what winning really means. Not crushing an opponent, but setting a standard others can look to. As one analyst on NPR put it, it wasn't Obama versus Trump, it was composure versus chaos, and composure won. For the audience in Phoenix, for millions watching at home, and for everyone who replayed the clip later, the takeaway was clear. Real strength isn't in the shouting, it's in the steadiness. Maybe that's the lesson worth carrying beyond politics into classrooms, workplaces, families, even friendships, because the loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm, speak truth, and let the world decide for itself. So if you're watching this right now, ask yourself, when the noise gets loud, when tempers flare, when someone tries to rattle you, will you match the chaos or will you hold your ground with calm? History shows us, calm wins. If this story spoke to you, if it reminded you that words matter, that composure carries weight, don't forget to subscribe. More stories like this are coming, each with a lesson we can carry forward. Stay steady, stay honest, and let the truth do the talking.